Good morning. Hope everybody's well. I thought I'd do a little follow-up video of my 100 indispensable classical LPs. A lot of those were very expensive on Discogs or reissues. I thought I'd give you a little video of 25, 26 LPs that really fly under the radar. These are all originals. They're all fairly inexpensive. I can't promise you can get them for really cheap, but if you look around on record shows or some record stores, if you still have those in your town or city, and of course on the internet, there's lots of them. eBay usually is pretty good. Discogs, of course, you're going to get dinged for shipping a lot, so they really make their money. But these records you can usually find for cheap, and they're really worth it. All of them have great recordings and great performances and interesting repertoire and interesting performers that you may or may not have heard of. So let's start with this one again. Philips recording, imported from Europe, made in the Netherlands. This is a Mozart Concerto recording with the great Stephen Bishop. Stephen Bishop is an American pianist, fine pianist, made his reputation in Europe, England specifically. And then he went back to, I think it's Slovenian roots or Bohemian roots of some sort, and named himself Stephen Kovacevic for many years on LPs. Same person, same great player, same great recordings. Then he became Stephen Bishop Kovacevic, I think it was. Anyway, whichever guise it is, he's a wonderful artist, especially in these Mozart concertos with one of the great Mozartians, Colin Davis, with the LSO company. And I've got this one, K467 and K503. Superb, beautifully recorded, but you can get any of his Mozart concertos with the LSO and Colin Davis, and you've got a winner there. Again, original Philips, you can get them for cheap. This one's an original Decca. Now, an original Decca, it might cost you some money, but this is not a very popular coupling. I mean, the music is wonderful. Benjamin Britten. Talk about under the radar pieces. His violin concerto is quite well known, but the concertos by Samuel Barber and other modern ones kind of outshine it in the repertoire. Not so much in quality, but just in the number of performances. And his piano concerto very rarely gets a licking. And we have two Russians, Sviatoslav Richter, who championed the work with Britten conducting the English Chamber Orchestra. Benjamin Britten was a fine conductor. And Mark Lubotsky, a Russian violinist. And this is not just its wonderful under-the-radar music, but it's a fantastic recording, as usual with Decca. That's the Snape Maltings in, I'm not sure what, I think it's Suffolk, in England, where the Benjamin Britten was from and made his musical home. And that's a converted hop. I think it was hops and beer and stuff, but it's converted with a beautiful concert hall and continues to be so. Anyway, Benjamin Britten, great music, but two of his under-the-radar pieces and beautifully played and beautifully recorded on Decca. Because the repertoire is not that famous, you can get that record for cheap. Now this one is really, talk about under the radar. This was courtesy of my great friend, Marty Appel, writer at Audiophile. Even though I'm choosing these as a conductor, many of you know me as the editor and publisher of Audiophile, and Marty is one of my longest and greatest friends, a writer for the magazine. And he said, "Anthony, have you heard this?" I said, "Nope, never heard it." Ravi Shankar, a sitar concerto, or the Shankar Concerto for sitar and orchestra, with Andrei Previn, who's always up for something. He's a great jazz musician as well as the LSO's conductor, with the London Symphony. And this is on EMI. This is an absolute stunner. The music is fun. It's cool. Another under-the-radar piece of music. The LSO sound like they're having fun, but the recording is just to die for. So if you can get that, you'll enjoy the programming, I think. The performance is, I assume, definitive because it's not that difficult. Well, for the sitar, maybe it's a very difficult instrument. But for the orchestral parts, they're not difficult. There's the EMI. Anyway, if you can find that, it's pretty readily available. Again, EMI, you might get dinged for the EMI tax, but again, not a very popular record, I would think. This one I got for $2 at a record show. This is some Schumann. It's novelette, lovely piano pieces played by the magnificent Claudio Arau on Philips. Like I said, it was $2. The music is superb, but the playing is wonderful, and the recording is equally good. So if you can find that, that's a treat for piano players and piano lovers. This is a little interesting recording. This is definitely music that you may or may not have heard of, but it's definitely under the radar, except for the Malcolm Arnold 3 shanties, which is a lot of fun for wind quintet. A wind quintet actually is sometimes they say it in the States, a woodwind quintet, but it's actually flute, oboe, clarinet, French horn, which blends well with woodwinds, and bassoon. And this is played by I think it's the London, let me take a look, because it's important to see who's playing. I think it's called, the generic London Wind Quintet. Yeah, with, oh boy, what a lineup. Gareth Morris, who is a fantastic flute player with the Philharmonia Orchestra. Sidney Sutcliffe, wonderful oboe player, very funny. Bernard Walton, great clarinet player. The great Gwydion Brooke on bassoon, did that great bassoon concerto. And of course, the magnificent Alan Civil. So it's a star lineup, mainly of Philharmonia people. And when they were at their very best, they called them the royal family. They were that good. Anyway, this is an Argo recording. The recording is spectacular, but I think you like the music. Matthias Seiber is a very underrated 20th century English composer. Roberto Gerhard, Spanish composer living in London. Peter Racine Fricke, not my cup of tea. You may like it. And the Malcolm Arnold is a lot of fun. I mean, the three sea shanties are close to my heart. This is an audiophile record, one of those audiophile records you think, I wonder how they're going to sound. Well, it's Walter Lilly Acoustics. It's going to sound superb. Now, this one might cost you some money because it says limited edition, one-step plating. This is Arthur Delmonia, a very nice man. I've been in touch with him a couple of times, playing Bach, Kreisler, and Isaïe. And just the most loveliest recording of solo violin. Arturo was the concertmaster of the New York City Ballet Orchestra in New York for many years. But that's a superb record. Great music, great playing, and Walter Lilly Acoustics recording. If you can find that one, I will tell you, is going to be pretty hard to find. This is one of my favorite Brahms records. I mentioned this in that box set in that last LP video I made. This is the Brahms Clarinet Quintet on Deutsche Grammophon. Superb recording with the Amadeus Quartet, but most importantly with Karl Leister, the clarinet. Karl Leister was the Berlin Philharmonic principal clarinet, and he has the most gorgeous tone. The opening of the Brahms Clarinet Quintet, if you know it, in that 6/8 swinging, beautiful, lilting rhythm. When he comes in on the clarinet, it's something to behold because his tone is so beautiful. He plays the German system clarinet, which is different than the North Americans and the British use. It's a very distinctive sound. I think it's got a slightly shorter barrel, but anyway, whatever he plays, it's magnificent. It's by far my favorite Brahms quintet. And there are some pretty amazing Brahms clarinet quintets out. So this one you can find for next to nothing. That is a must record for your collection. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a flute record. Please don't turn off. Flute players can get pretty boring talking about the flute. As a flutist, people say, oh, what do? I always say a musician. I don't ever say flutist. I know a lot of flute players, a lot of very successful flute players that all they listen to is flute music and flute records, flute CDs, streaming flute, and all they practice are orchestral excerpts. I've known a couple of very, very fine principal flutes of great orchestras that do that. That's not me. I prefer being a musician, listening to all types of music. Of course, I love the sound of the flute. But if you're going to get a flute record, this one's available. This is by the great Swiss flutist Aurel Nicolet, who was principal flute in the Berlin Phil for many years, and then became mainly a teacher in Freiburg, and had a fantastic solo career. This is about the best flute sound I think I've ever heard, playing beautiful music by Bach, C.P.E. Bach, the Poulenc Sonata, the Frank Martin Ballade, one of my favorite pieces, and Le Meule Noir, the Blackbird by Messiaen. I forget who the accompanist is. He's very good too. Gertie Herzog. Yeah, I don't remember his name. But Aurel Nicolai has I love the Masson, the Manet painting in the front. But the flute playing is spectacular. He can circular breathe. He has the most glorious tone, flawless technique, and by all accounts, a wonderful man and a wonderful teacher. So if you can find that, it's pretty easy. A couple of bucks. A beautiful sounding record. These, of course, are readily available. Pennies on the dollar. This is just one of millions of Mozart Trio recordings on Philips. There it is again. These are Haydn trios. I mean, it's the gold standard. Whether they're playing Haydn, Schumann, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms. I mean, they're the gold standard. So I once had the piano player, it was Menahem Pressler, a very serious, amazing pianist, longtime professor in Indiana. And I remember being called once for a gig, a page-turning gig at the Wigmore Hall, and I had to turn pages for him. Oh my God, it was one of the most nerve-wracking things I ever did. He looked so stern. I don't think I screwed up, but anyway, he was amazing. But the whole trio is amazing. Mozart Trio. This is another interesting record. This is music by Adolf Adam, one of those ballet composers that always goes under the radar. Orchestral players look at it and go, oh, I've got to play this music. But it's actually very beautiful. Lots of fun to listen to and actually fun to play. This is a kind of mid-price Mercury, which still sounds very, very good. But it has the great Anatole Fistolari conducting. He's talk about under the radar. London Symphony Orchestra, sounding spectacular. Lots of energy, beautiful ballet music. Giselle. This is another, I think it's the Adlerita record. Let's just double check. Yeah, there it is. Which command a huge premium because they're so good. But again, this is and not a very well-known coupling. William Walton, Scapino, a comedy overture, lots of fun. The Quest Ballet Suite, nobody plays, nobody knows. The Sinfonia Concertante with Peter Caton, very nice man, and a good piece. And Capriccio Burlesco, which is lots of fun. The Scapino people play quite a bit in England. But that's a wonderful record with the London Symphony Orchestra, and I think who's conducting? Yes, conducted by the man himself, Sir William Walton. But that's an Adlerita, and it shouldn't be too expensive because it's not a well-known repertoire, but it's great repertoire. You'll really enjoy it. Everyone thinks about high fits with the Brahms Concerto, and it is superb. And you can't really get an original in good condition. The reissue is expensive. This is by the great Nathan Milstein, I should say. Conducted by Ogun Joachim, who's a fantastic conductor for Brahms. The Vienna Philharmonic on Dutch gramophone. Beautiful recording, beautiful playing by Milstein. And it's Brahms. What more do you need? And it's going to be, I think I got this for free. It's a couple of bucks. This has one thing going for it. Well, the Sibelius music is gorgeous, the Sibelius Symphony No. 1. The Vienna Philharmonic, of course, is superb. But it's London, not, where are we here? London, not Decca. So it's, they're usually really good. Not as good as the Deccas, but they're usually very good. And it's got Marzel, who gets really short shrift on the internet as far as, and the classical music groups, as far as quality is concerned. Some of his Cleveland recordings on Decca are stupendous, but expensive. On London, they're cheaper. But this is very, very good Sibelius. He did a wonderful Sibelius cycle with the Vienna Phil. The playing is beautiful. If you don't know the Corellia Suite, I've played it about 300 times. It's quite simple, but it's very sweet. But the Symphony No. 1 is a magnificent piece by Sibelius. That's a good one, and you can get it for next to nothing. Again, on London, there it is. A Decca would be much more expensive, but the London one you can get. This is one of the Zubin Mehta's recordings I've been telling you about in the last couple of videos with the LA Phil. This is the Symphonia Domestica. The playing on this is spectacularly good, and the recording is wonderful. There's no better Symphonia Domestica. It's incredibly difficult to play. The orchestra play just superbly well for Mehta. There's lots of fun. There's the family. It's about his family life, Strauss's family life. And, a lot of people, denigrate this piece as, oh, God, we're going to hear the bath time of the baby and the lovemaking and the arguments and, but forget all that nonsense. Just listen to a fantastic piece of music and you won't get better than that. And again, you can find this very easily. I listened to this one the other day and I bought it. I got it for like $5 at a record show. And it's spectacular. When you get Bartók, music for strings, percussion, and celesta, and Miraculous Mandarin, you usually go for, Reiner, and there's lots of superb reissues. But this is an original, again, London, so it's not too expensive. You can probably get it for fairly cheap. And it's with Schulte and the LSO. His earlier LSO recordings on Decca originally are so much better than later Chicago ones. I'll tell you a quick story. I think you might like this one. There's a rude word at the end of it. The LSO, have a very headstrong attitude. They were a great orchestra. Schulte was young, and they called him the Screaming Skull because he was screamed all the time. And the great trumpet player, Maurice Murphy, who was known to test conductors, he's the gentleman who played on Star Wars and all the great recordings. And Schulte didn't like to be interrupted during rehearsals. He would just write down and play lots of long stretches of the music. Maurice Murphy put his hand up and said, Maestro. Schulte ignored him. 5 minutes later, Maestro. A little louder, Schulte ignored him again. The third time, about 10 minutes later, Maurice Murphy shouts, Maestro, and Schulte, and stands up and says it. And Schulte says, what? And by that time, he was pissed off, and he goes, bollocks, a very bad word to say to a conductor. Anyway, that was the kind of tempestuous relationship they had. He also had one, George Schulte, with the London Philharmonic when he took them over. And, when he first took them over, he said, in Chicago, we do it this way. In Chicago, we do it that way. In Chicago, they play it this way. In Chicago, they play it that way. Finally, Nick Bush, the principal horn and the chairman of the orchestra, stood up and said, Maestro, we're in London, not Chicago. Anyway, and also, another Schulte story, my conducting teacher, Bernard Keefe, at Trinity College of Music in London, was Schulte's assistant at Covent Garden. They did not get on. In fact, Schulte, in his autobiography, I think gave Bernard Keefe, who was very important at Covent Garden, one line. And every time I had conducting lessons with him, and I'd say, I've got this recording by Schulte, he would call Schulte a speed merchant. Anyway, story time over. This is, whatever he was like as a person, as a conductor, he can be quite magnificent. This is not expensive. And the Miraculous Mandarin is amazing. And the music for strings, percussion, and celesta, even more difficult than Miraculous Mandarin, if you can imagine that, is equally as good. That's a great one. And let's think fondly about Mr. Schulte. When I was in London, we were looking for, I think it was that Carlos Kleiber to come over and conduct the London Symphony. Of course, Carlos Kleiber canceled. What else is new? So they had to scramble the LSO, and they got Karl Böhm in his place. And Karl Böhm, of course, is no slouch, and we were happy to go see him. And at the same time, they recorded this. Now, Karl Böhm, Tchaikovsky, LSO, DG, strange bedfellows. But this is a superb Tchaikovsky's Fifth. Beautiful horn playing in the solo, in the slow movement. The LSO sound fantastic. They must have been inspired by Karl Böhm, a very wonderful conductor, but a taskmaster. Great recording. So I found this, I think it was $2 or $3. That's one to look for. Tchaikovsky Symphony No. 5 with the LSO and Karl Böhm. Again, a great recording by Argo, loved by audiophiles, and of course you pay a premium. But for this one, Stravinsky's two ballets, Pulcinella and Apollo Musagette. Pulcinella is famous, of course, and very beautiful. So is Apollo Musagette. But they're not really wanted, Stravinsky, they want, if they want Deckers and Argos, they want Petrushka and the Firebird and the Rite of Spring. So this one you might be able to find. It's spectacular. The recording at St. John Smith Square, if you go to the other video I did on the indispensable 100 LPs, I tell a story about recording in St. John Smith Square, very interesting sounds. But that's a great record. I've really discovered, ever since Jim Norris, our writer, did a Antal Doradi, streaming the classics for audiophilia. And Doradi was he underrated in so many ways, especially by, some of the young conducting snobs at music colleges, and we kind of stuck our noses up at Doradi, but of course we were completely in the wrong. His recordings with the LSO, of course, are very famous, but he also did some crackerjack ones with the one at the time, Minneapolis Symphony. His Eroica with this orchestra is superb if you ever get a chance to buy that on record. I don't have it. You can stream it, though, at very high level, 96, I think, or 192, and it's amazing. This is Der Rosenkavalier Until Eulenspiegel by Strauss. Yeah, just wonderfully played, lots of fun, and it's an original Mercury. Again, I think I got this for like $5. This one in the original EMI is highly sought after. This is the intermediate level pricing, green sleeves. But it's the Cornish Dances, the English Dances, and some overtures by Malcolm Arnold. Conducting, it's Sir Charlie Groves conducting Bournemouth and City of Birmingham. And the recording is just fantastic. But you should be able to get it for not too much, especially get the green sleeve. But the music is so much fun. You know, Arnold could write music very quickly and beautifully. And all his dances, the Scottish dances, of course, very famous. But that's a superb record. And you should be able to get it for not too much money. A couple of German conductors kind of go under the radar. One of them is Hans Schmidt Isserstedt, who some people thought was kind of a journeyman conductor after the war. But he's a very fine conductor, and this is some very good Mozart with the London Symphony. So you think to yourself, wow, it's a Mercury, and it sounds very good. And I got it for, I think this was part of a free haul. By the way, all these recordings are stereo. There's no monos in these. These are all stereo. And this is very good. I use it as a break-in record because the 41 is quite long. So it's 39. I think you get a full 28 minutes on the side. So when I'm breaking in cartridges, I use it. But Schmidt Isserstedt is a fantastic conductor. Really good for Mozart and Beethoven. His Beethoven cycle, I forget who it's with. One of the German radio orchestras is very fine. But the LSO sound fantastic. And that's a great record. And again, you probably get it for $1 or $2. Another one of the famous Argos. This one might cost you a little bit more because the music is so beautiful and it's so famous, but the Mozart Anerklang Musik with the Academy St. Martin's in the Fields and Neville Mariner. I mean, it's just exquisite playing, exquisite music, beautifully recorded by Argo. So this is an original living stereo. This is LSC 2327. Music by Bizet, the L'Alaisienne Suites 1 and 2. It's also got some Chabrier, Marche Joyeuse, which is a lot of fun, and Espagne. But look at the orchestra, the Royal Opera House Convent Garden. Well, it's actually Covent, as you know, Covent Garden. So a misprint on there, with Jean Morel, conductor. A lot of fun, beautiful music. Again, not a very popular LSC, and you should be able to get that. That might cost you $10 or $15, but the music is beautiful. Underrated compared to a lot of other stuff orchestras play. Wonderful music. Have a look for that. And finally, another under the radar. This is Everest, not always my favorite recording company, but this is very, very good. This is Brahms Symphony No. 3, played by Tchaikovsky and the Houston Symphony when he was there. I'm not a big lover of Tchaikovsky. I think he fiddles around too much, and I think he's a bit of a charlatan. But this is very good, very coherent, beautifully played. Intonation is beautiful. I think you'll really enjoy this. So that's it. Under the radar, inexpensive, original classical LPs worthy of your collection. Hope you can find those. I think that'll be the last video for a while. I've done 3 in quick succession, the 100 indispensable classical LPs. Then I did the CD one yesterday, a box set, and now today. So I hope you're all well and buying lots of vinyl and listening to lots of vinyl. They're all originals. They're all stereo. They're all fairly inexpensive. Probably all of them you can get for under $20. Maybe some of them for free, some of them in estate sales, maybe a couple of bucks here and there. But enjoy the fun, enjoy the collecting, and enjoy the music. And we'll see you in the next video.